I was driving home from a friend's place late one night. He lived way out in the countryside, about an hour from me. It had to be around 1:30 or maybe 2 a.m. I was exhausted and honestly thought about just staying over, but I had work in the morning and couldn't afford to miss it. Most of the drive was through empty farmland. No streetlights. No houses. Just long stretches of dark road. I had music playing quietly to stay awake, my eyes locked on the headlights cutting through the darkness. About 20 minutes into the drive, something appeared in the middle of the road. I slammed the brakes harder than I meant to. There was a suitcase standing upright directly in my lane. Not tipped over. Not open. Just sitting there like someone had carefully placed it. I stared at it for several seconds, trying to process what I was seeing. My tired brain struggled to make sense of it. I didn't feel like getting out to investigate, so I slowly moved into the opposite lane and drove around it. I convinced myself it must have fallen out of someone's truck and somehow landed upright. It felt strange, but I kept going. Maybe 5 minutes later, my headlights hit something again. This time it was a truck parked in the middle of the road. No headlights. No hazard lights. Nothing. If I hadn't had my high beams on, I might have crashed straight into it. I stopped behind it and waited. Then I honked. Once. Twice. A few more times. No movement. I couldn't see anyone inside through the back window. After about 30 seconds, I carefully drove around it. As I passed, I noticed dents and scrapes along the side. Old damage maybe, or maybe not. But what bothered me most was that I couldn't see anyone inside at all. The area around us was nothing but farmland in every direction. No buildings. No driveways. No reason for someone to abandon a truck there. A bad feeling settled in my chest. I kept driving. Now I was fully awake. Were the suitcase and the truck connected somehow? I hadn't seen anyone walking along the road looking for a suitcase. The whole situation felt wrong. And then I had to stop for a third time. There was a man standing in my lane, waving his arms. He looked to be in his early 40s. His hair was messy. His clothes were dirty. I could see cuts and scrapes on his arms. He didn't look well. I stopped a few feet away from him. He smiled and approached my window. "Did you see a truck back there?" he asked. "Yes," I said cautiously. "Could you give me a ride back to it?" Before answering, I asked why it was parked in the road and what he was doing out there. He hesitated. Stumbled over his words. Then said he had run out of gas and was walking to a gas station. That didn't make sense. If he was going to a gas station, why would he want to ride back to the truck instead? He kept talking quickly, not really giving me time to think. That's when my eyes drifted past him, toward the crops on the side of the road. I saw something metallic. The back end of a small car was barely visible deep in the field. One of the rear reflectors faintly caught my headlights. It looked like the car had gone off the road. My stomach dropped. I slowly rolled my window back up. The man's expression changed instantly. His smile disappeared. His eyes widened. He started yelling and pounding on my window. I hit the gas and drove away as fast as I could. A few minutes later, I called the police. When officers arrived, the truck was gone. But the car in the field was still there. The driver inside hadn't survived, and it wasn't from a crash. Investigators believed the person may have picked up a hitchhiker. Possibly the same man I saw. They suspected the suitcase and the parked truck were staged to force drivers to stop. The man was never identified. And I still think about how close I came to unlocking my door that night. I'm 32 and work long haul for a trucking company. This happened during the winter, right around the holidays. Driving that time of year is always more draining, cold air, icy roads, long dark stretches of highway. That night I left town around 6 p.m. with a delivery heading 2 states over. Everything was normal at first. Around 11 p.m., I pulled into a small truck stop just to use the restroom, grab some coffee, and rest for a few minutes. It was quiet. Only a couple of other trucks were parked there. I came back out with my coffee, climbed into the driver's seat, and just sat there for a moment. I remember taking a sip and casually scanning the lot. That's when I noticed someone near the back of the building. The lighting back there was dim, but I could see a man leaning against the wall. He was facing in my direction. My truck was parked a little off to the side, and there wasn't much else over there to look at. I couldn't clearly see his face, but every time I glanced up, he seemed to still be looking toward me. I told myself I was overthinking it. Still, it felt strange enough that I decided not to rest. Snow had just started falling, lightly at first. I put the truck in gear and continued my route. About half an hour later, I noticed something odd in my side mirror. A quick flash, like light reflecting off metal, near the back of my trailer. I checked my mirrors again, thinking maybe a car was coming up behind me. But I couldn't see anything. Maybe it was just a road reflector, I thought. The snowfall was getting heavier, and I focused on the road ahead. About an hour later, I saw the reflection again. This time I caught it more clearly. There was a car directly behind my trailer. It was so close that I couldn't properly see it in my mirrors. Its headlights were off. The only reason I noticed it was because when it drifted slightly to the side, my truck's lights reflected faintly off its front end. Who drives in snowy conditions that close to a semi, with no headlights? It didn't make sense. I've dealt with tailgaters before, but this felt different. Dangerous. Intentional. After a minute or two, I decided to create distance. I changed lanes. The car changed lanes too. That's when I knew it wasn't random. I moved back into the right lane. This time, the car stayed where it was. Then it began slowing down until it disappeared from view completely. I had no idea what that was about, but at least it was gone. I kept driving for another couple of hours. Around 3 a.m., exhausted, I pulled into a small roadside rest area. It wasn't a full stop, just a clearing off the highway big enough for 2 or 3 trucks. No building. No lights except the distant glow from the highway. I parked, shut off the engine, leaned my seat back, and fell asleep almost immediately. The snow was falling steadily. The wind was calm. It felt peaceful. I planned to sleep until sunrise. But I woke up much earlier. At first, I didn't know why. The inside of the cab was dark except for faint light coming from the highway. I shifted slightly in my seat. And froze. There were eyes staring at me through the driver's side window. Wide. Unblinking. A man was standing right outside my truck, looking directly at me. I nearly fell out of my seat. He didn't react. He just calmly stepped down from the side of the truck and tried the door handle. Locked. He pulled it again. Then I heard footsteps crunching quickly through the snow as he ran off. I immediately grabbed the radio and called for help. Seconds later, a car pulled out from behind my trailer and drove away. It was the same car from earlier. I'm certain of it. I gave the police every detail I could remember. While explaining everything, I suddenly thought back to the truck stop, the man leaning against the building, watching me. Was it the same person? Had he followed me from there? Why? I never got answers. To this day, I don't know what he wanted or what might have happened if my doors hadn't been locked. I was 16 when this happened. I had been working at a local pizza place for about 6 months. After saving up enough money, I finally bought a cheap used car. I was tired of relying on rides, and I really wanted to start doing deliveries instead of staying inside the store all night. One weekday evening, I clocked in at 5 p.m. after school. I was scheduled to work until 10:30. The first couple of hours were busy, but by 8 o'clock things suddenly slowed down. Around 9 p.m., an online order came in, 2 medium pizzas. That was it. Nothing unusual. I grabbed the order and headed out. Traffic was light. Just a few cars here and there. About 5 minutes away from the neighborhood listed on the address, a car pulled out from a side street and got behind me. The road was empty enough that they easily could have passed me. But they didn't. They stayed directly behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it. It's normal for cars to follow the same route for a few minutes. Still, after several turns, they were right there. When I turned into the neighborhood, I checked my mirror again. A few seconds later, their headlights appeared behind me as they made the same turn. That's when I started paying closer attention. The neighborhood was quiet and surrounded by woods. Houses were spaced far apart, some close to the road, others at the end of long driveways. I kept driving until my headlights lit up a mailbox with the exact address from the order. I turned into the driveway. A few seconds later, the car behind me passed and continued down the road. I remember feeling a little embarrassed for being suspicious. The driveway wasn't very long, maybe a couple 100 feet. I parked near the house, grabbed the pizzas, and walked to the front door. The porch light was on, but the inside of the house looked dark. I knocked. No answer. I waited and knocked again. After about half a minute, a light turned on inside. A few seconds later, a woman opened the door. She looked like she had just woken up, early 30s, wearing a nightgown, clearly tired and irritated. I told her I had a delivery for that address and read it out loud. She frowned and said she hadn't ordered anything. She insisted there must be a mistake and said she had been asleep. I apologized and stepped off the porch, confused. As I walked back toward my car, I stared down at the ground, trying to figure out what had happened. Maybe someone entered the wrong address online. Halfway to my car, I looked up. My stomach dropped. There was a car parked directly behind mine in the driveway. It was the same car from earlier. Its headlights were off, but I could see exhaust smoke rising in the cold air. The engine was still running. The driveway was narrow. There wasn't enough space to easily get around them. My mind started racing. Did they live here? Were they just arriving home? Or was this connected to the fake order? Everything suddenly felt wrong. I got into my car and threw the pizzas onto the passenger seat. I started the engine and slowly pulled forward toward the house to try turning around. Surely they would understand I needed to leave. But they didn't move. They stayed parked right in the center of the driveway, blocking the exit. For about 30 seconds, we just sat there, facing each other. That's when everything clicked. They had followed me. The fake order. The wrong address. The timing. This wasn't random. My hands started shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then their car doors opened. 4 men stepped out. They were wearing hoodies and hats, their faces mostly hidden. One of them kept his hand inside his hoodie pocket like he was holding something. They started running toward my car. I panicked and slammed the gas, trying to squeeze around their vehicle. There wasn't enough room. My tires slid off the driveway into the dirt, and I hit a tree. It wasn't a hard crash, the airbags didn't deploy, but I didn't wait to find out if the car was damaged. I jumped out and ran into the woods. I could hear one of them chasing me for a short distance, shouting to the others. But eventually, the footsteps faded. When I felt far enough away, I called 911. By the time officers arrived, both cars, mine and theirs, were gone. My vehicle was never recovered. Police believed the group had used a random address to place a fake order, knowing it would send a driver out alone. The plan was likely to trap whoever showed up. What they intended to do, I'll never know. But judging by the way they chased me, I don't think they planned on letting me leave. I was lucky that night. Very lucky.